Obviously this podcast is all about storytelling, and I don't know, someone much smarter and much more poetic than me once said that whiskey is liquid storytelling.
Oh, I think that's right. Yeah.
And I think there's a great backstory that maybe I'd like you to briefly share with the audience about Brother Justus.
Yeah, Brother Justus is a real person. So he's not made up lore. He's not some sort of marketing gimmick or creation. Brother Justus was originally named William Trettel. He was born outside of St. Joseph, Minnesota, by St. Cloud. And in the 1900s, he became a monk, a Benedictine monk. And he would have just been like a lot of monks that sort of just live their life, pass on to heaven in obscurity. Nobody ever hears about him. But Brother Justus was a little different because of the timing. In the 1920s, Minnesota went through the farm depression, and of course the whole country went through Prohibition.
Right.
And farmers all over the country started to make moonshine. Brother Justus got involved. He got involved because he saw that farmers needed to make moonshine to make a living because of the collapse of grain prices, but they also needed a way to do it safely and honorably. And they didn't have the tools and they didn't have the training to be able to make clean, safe, high-quality whiskey. And he was the Abbey blacksmith and the Abbey distiller. He could solve that problem for them. So he actually built whiskey stills in the Abbey blacksmith shop and smuggled them out to local farmers' farms, and then ran them through Benedictine whiskey-making boot camp and made them promise to always do it the right way and teach what he taught them to their neighbors. And if they could make him that promise, he gave them the still. And that created an incredible legacy in Minnesota. By the mid-1920s, Minnesota was making the most highly coveted moonshine in America. It was called Minnesota 13, and there were 1,200 distilleries, active whiskey distilleries, in basically Stearns County alone. And that was such an influential piece because it was really the only whiskey where if you didn't know the specific distiller, but you knew it came from Minnesota, you could trust it was safe, it was clean, and it was the highest quality.
And then, so how did that name translate into the current iteration, which is what we're in front of us today?
So it really came from my personal connection to the St. John's community. I was a student at St. John's. I actually, in addition to being a student of St. John's, I was a student regent. I got to know the monks very well. I got to know the history of the Abbey really well. And I got to know local people really well. And I started to hear people whisper about these experiences or this history, this secret hidden moonshining history that Minnesota has.
It wasn't well documented?
No. There's really only been one book written about it. It was written by Elaine Davis in 2011. And before that, you had to know somebody who knew somebody to have any idea that this was happening. And in fact, if you go around in Minnesota, most people don't even know that this was one of the most important moonshining states in the country. And so it really was meeting old timers who remembered and telling me, back in the 1920s, every farm in this county had a still. And we were making the best whiskey. And Capone tried to send up his goons and get control of it. And there's a Model A Ford at the bottom of that lake. And it's got the driver in there too, because they ran into a teeth full of Germans who didn't appreciate the way they did business. Like, you start to hear that oral history, and that stuck with me over the years. And I thought, oh, what a great way. I have a vision for how to make a great American whiskey, but a great American whiskey needs a great American story. And this is a great American story. This is the kind of hero that actually most Americans want to be and imagine themselves. Not somebody that's out there taking advantage of people for their own personal gain, but somebody mastering something and giving the benefits of that mastery so people can give themselves success. That's how I think most Americans see themselves, but that's not who the traditional heroes of whiskey have been in America. So I've kind of tracked this down. I found this book by Elaine Davis. It's called Minnesota 13. Unfortunately, it's out of print. You can find copies, hopefully used copies, maybe online. And I saw this one sentence about Brother Justus building whiskey stills and teaching farmers how to use them so they could make whiskey safely and high quality. And so then I tracked down, his closest living relatives, his nephew, Lawrence Trettel, who passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago at the age of 90. Mm-hmm. I was there celebrating his birthday with Brother Justus, and he had a nice big slug of that. That actually kept him alive, did not did not hasten his demise. But he and his family, his sons and daughters, and which would be Brother Justus's great nieces and nephews, they were so excited when I reached out to them because they knew this family history. He was a really important person in their family. He was a really important
Were they able
person.
to add a lot of details to the
They
story
did.
that weren't in the book?
Yeah, because there was just the one sentence in the book, and Lawrence hadn't had a chance to talk to Elaine Davis when she was writing the book, so none of his lore and none of his memory, living memory of who Brother Justus was, made it into the book, but he told it to me. And we recorded it, and I've been building on that through oral history from other surviving nieces and nephews ever since.
It's really interesting because obviously at the height of Prohibition, here's a monk who was defying sort of federal laws, but he justified it, I would imagine, in the sense that he was helping contribute to the livelihood of these farmers who were
100%.
suffering so many economic pressures, and he felt that was the greater good at that moment.
That's exactly it. And I think that's a very Minnesotan thing. I think as you can even see some parallels in what's going on right now.
Right.
Minnesotans are law-abiding, but sometimes we realize circumstances force you to have to do something to feed your family, put a roof
Sometimes
over
the
their-
moral and the legal circles are not completely concentric.
That's right. Brother Justus, or somebody attributed to Brother Justus, something can be illegal but not immoral. And sometimes the legal thing is the immoral thing.
Right.
And it takes discernment to do that, and you should never do it lightly. But when you make a decision, your neighbor's needs trump some sort of abstract, any sort of abstract political agenda or ideology.